Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's Bible study. This week, we are studying this section of Meketz, and that is in Genesis 41, verses 1 until Genesis 44, verses 17. And Meketz means after, and after what? After 2 years of being in jail. So we see in the previous portion that the butler and the baker had their dreams and they were set free from prison. So it's after 2 years that they have been set free that we pick up this week's portion. We're also looking at the Haftorah portion, which is Isaiah 66, verses 1 to 24, and Luke 24, verses 13 to 29. Okay, let's get into it. So in this week's chapter overview, we see in chapter 41, Pharaoh's 2 dreams that he has. We also see Joseph released from prison, and then we see Joseph ascend to power and follow God's plan that he gave to Joseph. Then we see the famine starting, so the 7 years of blessing has passed, and then the famine starts, and then we start seeing the fulfillment of Pharaoh's dreams. Chapter 42, we see that Jacob sends his 10 sons. So everyone goes except obviously Joseph, because they think he's dead. He's already in Egypt, but Benjamin doesn't travel with. But the other 10 sons are then sent to Egypt to get them some food, where they unknowingly meet Joseph again. Okay, and so Joseph's first dream gets fulfilled in this chapter, where the brothers do bow down to him. And that we see in his first dream of his sheep standing up and the others bowing down to him. And we see also the brothers' first test. And we're going to look a bit at how is Joseph testing his brothers. Chapter 43, the brothers return with Benjamin, and they go through their second test. And chapter 44 is the third test. Starts off, and sort of in the middle of the test, we don't really see the end of the test in this week's portion. That will go over to next week's portion, and we'll pick it up then. Okay, so let's just quickly recap the whole story, right? Joseph had these 2 dreams, and he shares it with his family. And before he even shares it with the family, his brothers are already getting more jealous. Before he says he has a dream, we had a dream, and the brothers already get upset. He then goes to search for his brothers. He's thrown into a pit because they didn't want to murder him, but they threw him into a pit and then sold him into slavery, where he went to work in Potiphar's house in Egypt. And Potiphar's wife then fancies him and tries to have relations with him, and Joseph ends up running away and being put into jail. Okay, and whilst he is in jail, he becomes the master of the jail, just like he was master of Potiphar's house. And eventually he is then rescued out of that situation, and we're going to see how does he come to this place of power then in Egypt. Okay, so Joseph's turning point. Okay, it's very important to see that you see the Torah portion starts saying, and after 2 years that Pharaoh had these dreams, and none of the people in his group of wise men could tell him what do these dreams mean. And so the cupbearer remembers Joseph and him laying out his dreams. And so Pharaoh sends for Joseph, and he's run out of jail, and he was washed and cleaned up and given a new change of robes, taken to Pharaoh. And Pharaoh told him his dreams, and we all know the story how Joseph said the dreams are the same. There will be 7 years of plenty and then 7 years of famine, and during the 7 years of plenty we need to store up 20% of what everyone makes in grain. We're going to store it up as tax, 20%, and that will take care of the land for the 7 years of famine. What I really want to show you here is that he was taken out very quickly. The previous night he went to sleep a prisoner, and the next night he went to sleep in Pharaoh's house as a master over the whole country. And we're going to look a bit at that. So just like Israel was taken out of Egypt very quickly, they couldn't even make breads that could rise. Joseph stayed 2 years longer in prison, but then he was taken out quickly. And we're going to look a bit, why did he stay 2 years after he told the butler and the cupbearer to please remember him? He actually asked that to the cupbearer. The butler died. Okay, so we're going to look at that a bit later. So Joseph's conditions were less than ideal. And like Joseph, we shouldn't wait for ideal, sorry, that should be shouldn't. We shouldn't wait for ideal conditions to pursue greatness. Maybe God placed you in less ideal situations, because that is exactly when you will thrive. We see that even in slavery in Potiphar's house, he thrived. In prison, unjustly in prison, he thrived. And then he was placed as a master over Egypt, and he thrived. But it's because in his situations that were less than ideal, that actually were quite unfair, he chose to thrive. He chose to not be a victim of his circumstances and not use it as an excuse to not better himself. He kept thriving. And we should do the same. So like Joseph, we should wait. I'm sorry, this is a repeat. Okay, so are you passing your tests or revisiting your pain over and over? Joseph just said, listen, this happened to me. There's no point in every time an opportunity comes saying, I'm so traumatized because I was thrown into a pit. How scared I was of the scorpions and the snakes. And then I was sold into slavery. And then I finally picked myself up. And then Potiphar put me in jail because of his wife. And it's all a lie. And I can't do this anymore. I'm so traumatized. I'm so stuck. Or are you saying to yourself, this has happened. I cannot do anything about what has happened to me, but I can choose to react good now. And this is an amazing quote from, now I can't remember her name, but she's asked, are you revolving, meaning are you revisiting your pain, or are you evolving? And I think that's such an amazing thing to ask ourselves. Joseph was not held hostage by his past, his troubles, his pain. Okay, he never asked, why God, why me? He simply embraced the circumstances and said, how do I overcome this? This is an amazing lesson, because, and by this, I'm not saying that if you go through something terrible to not work through your trauma, to not work through your pain. That is saying, how do I overcome my trauma? How do I overcome my pain? How do I overcome what has happened to me and become a better person? But if you sort of use it as an excuse over and over, and you use it as a defense mechanism, you use it as a shield, you're not going to reach your place of becoming the master of the house. Okay. Are you passing your tests? I'm asking this again, or revisiting your pain over and over. Remember, you are not a hostage of what has happened to you. So let's look at Joseph testing his brothers. So Jacob sends his 10 sons to Egypt to buy food. They get there, and unbeknownst to them, runs into Joseph. Joseph uses a translator to speak to them and accuses them of being spies. They try to get out of the situation and tell Joseph about their family, including Benjamin. And Joseph cries, hearing his dad is alive and his brother is well. He tells them they are spies and that he locks them up. He then flips the situation on them. He puts them into a pit. Okay. He decides to set them free, and if they will return back to Egypt with Benjamin to prove their integrity, and to ensure they return, he keeps Simeon as a prisoner. Now, the sages say he keeps Simeon because Simeon had the bright spark idea to put him in the pit in the first place. So why do this? Why is Joseph testing his brothers? What is Joseph looking for in them? And we're looking at Genesis 42, verses 21 to 25. They said to each other, we are in fact guilty concerning our brother. This is interesting because they do not know, they're saying this in front of Joseph, and they don't know that Joseph can speak Hebrew because he's been using a translator. So they're having this discussion in front of Joseph while he's imprisoning Simeon, and he wants to see Benjamin, and now they sort of fessing up to each other, saying, we are in fact guilty concerning our brother. He was in distress and pleaded with us, and we saw it and wouldn't listen. That's why this distress has come upon us now. Reuben answered them, didn't I tell you don't wrong the boy? But you wouldn't hear of it. Now comes the reckoning for his blood. They had no idea that Joseph understood them, since an interpreter was translated for them. Joseph turned away from them and wept. Then he returned and spoke to them. He took Simeon from among them and put him into prison before their eyes. Next, he ordered that their containers be filled with grain, that every man's money be put back into the pack, and that they be given provisions for the journey when these things had been done for them. Okay, so let's look at this. This is the first test. Do they regret what they have done to Joseph? Has their hearts changed towards what Joseph always wanted, which is brotherhood? And to ensure his heart, Joseph's heart of brotherhood remained intact, he sent them home with their food and their money. And this is interesting because we spoke last week and we said no one else's life compares as much to Yeshua's life as Joseph. We know Joseph is a comparison to Yeshua, to Jesus. And so what we need to ask ourselves is if we are the brothers of Joseph, because Yeshua says, you are my brother, my mother, my sister, right? If we are Yeshua's brother, is he coming to test us as well? Does he sometimes throw us into what we see as a pit and take a part of us hostage and keep a part of us away from us? And he says, return with your brother Benjamin to go through your second test. And what is Benjamin? Benjamin is something that we prize. Jacob really prized Benjamin. We see that he doesn't send him the first time with the rest of his brothers because he fears it's something Jacob is holding on to. What are you holding on to? We'll get to that a bit later. The second test, eventually Jacob had no other choice because they ran out of food. He had to send Benjamin with them back to Egypt. And so Judah convinces Jacob that if anything befalls Benjamin, he, Judah, will change positions with Benjamin. He said, you can acquire the life of this boy from my hands. I will take care of him, and if there's any danger, I'll make sure I take the flak of the danger. And so once they arrive, Joseph sees them and asked the master of his own house to prepare a banquet in his own home for the brothers. He has them seated in order of age. So from Reuben all the way to Benjamin, they're sitting according to age. And the brothers say, what is this? What is God doing? How does this man know who's the oldest? He serves them all food and ends up serving Benjamin 5 times more than he serves the other brothers. And then Joseph looks. Why does he do this? He is testing if a son of Rachel is presented with 5 times more than them. How will they react? He is seeing, because Joseph got the coat, right, of many colors. And the brothers grew so jealous because the father favored them. And now Joseph is favoring Benjamin, his brother by birth. And he's asking him, he's looking at the brothers to see, how are you reacting if I bestow this great kindness on your brother? Will you still be jealous? And Yeshua does this to us as well. Oftentimes we pray for things that God gives to other people. And Yeshua looks at our heart. Will we be jealous? Will we condemn that person? Will we be angry that they are getting more than what we are getting? Or will we pass the test like the brothers did? Okay, so will they still be jealous? Try to throw Benjamin in a pit now. Sell him for profit. But the brothers passed again. Each was given his serving there in front of him, but Benjamin's portion was 5 times as large as any of theirs. So they drank and enjoyed themselves with him. So with Benjamin, it didn't bother them. They didn't even notice that he was getting more. It didn't do anything to their hearts. So they're no longer jealous. They're no longer seeing themselves as individuals trying to succeed, trying to make profit, trying to better their house. They saw that we are one together. There's brotherhood now. There's love. And they are happy for Benjamin that he is getting more. And then the third test starts. After they spent the night, they were sent home. Joseph made his servants hide him, Joseph's cup, in Benjamin's sack. And when they caught up to him, required him to become Joseph's servant. So he hid the cup in Benjamin's bag, and when they chased after them and got them and they said, our master's cup is gone. Who has done this? The brothers say, whoever did it, he can die. We will not steal from you. And then they open the bag, Benjamin's bag, and there's the cup. And the brothers must have thought, yes, like mother, like son, because Rachel stole her father's idols, right? And this is sort of where we end off the story, where Judah starts explaining and said, listen, this boy's brother has died, and his father's life is connected to this son. Benjamin, the father will die if Benjamin dies. And how many times does God come and first of all require something of us that we feel, if I give this thing up, I will surely die. I will not survive. My life is connected to this person. It's connected to my job. It's connected to my income. It's connected to my pride. It's connected to my ego and my image. And if God takes that away, I'll be ruined. I can just as well die then, because then there's nothing worth living for. And we see that's not the truth, right? And oftentimes, God will take the things that we think our life is connected to, and we'll look at that a bit later as well. And so Judah intervenes, and next week we see what happens to this test. And so why does Joseph set this test? To see if one of the brothers will exchange their life for the life of the brother. Remember, we said in last week's portion, I think, Reuben said, don't kill the boy. But what Reuben should have done, he should have picked Joseph up and ran home with him, or said, if you kill this boy, you'll have to kill me first. He's trying to see if someone will exchange their lives for Benjamin. He's trying to see, will someone save Benjamin from slavery in Egypt? Or will they sell another brother into Egypt? Okay, so let's quickly jump back. We've finished the third test. We're quickly jumping back to the time between the first test and the second test, when the brothers came home and said, Simeon's not with us. He was he's held as a captive in Egypt because the guy accused us of being spies. And we told him we're all brothers. We're not spies. We come from the same household. And then the man asked about our father, and we said, our father's alive and well. And he asked if there's another brother, and we said, yes, just one, but he stays with the father, and his brother is no more. And we look at Jacob's reaction in Genesis 42 verses 38, because they then tell him he wants to meet Benjamin. He says he will refuse to see us if we don't return with Benjamin. And so he replied, my son will not go down with you. His brother is dead and he alone is left. If anything were to happen to him while traveling with you, you would bring my gray hair down to Sheol with grief. Sheol is the grave, death. Okay, so God wants to give Jacob his heart's desire. Joseph will be returned. That's Jacob's heart's desire. And the only way to do that is to send Benjamin. And Jacob's just like, I'm not sending Benjamin. But Jacob has to sacrifice that which he is holding onto in order to get Joseph back. Imagine if Jacob didn't have fear for Benjamin's life, and he said, okay, leave the food that you've got, go back to Egypt, take Benjamin with you, and get Simeon back immediately. God will take care of Benjamin. Who knows how long they were at home before they went for the second test. Imagine they returned immediately. Jacob would have had months more with Joseph. But because of his fear, him not wanting to give up the thing he holds dearest, it withholds him actually from the blessing of God. And this often happens to us. Genesis 42 verses 28. He said to his brothers, my money has been restored. There it is, right in my back. At that, their hearts sank. They turned trembling to one another and said, what is this that God has done to us? This was such a strange thing for me to say. What is this that God has done to us? They thinking God is punishing us. Isn't it enough that Simeon is captive and we'll have to go back and tell our father about this and get Benjamin to come back? Now God has made this man to return our money. At least they have what we call emunah. They realize it's no one other than God. God does everything in your life. It's not a person's choice. It's God. But We often do this. We blame God for our mistakes and then asking, why has God done this to me? Because they're asking this question because they were in prison and Simeon was taken and Benjamin needs to be brought back. And they realize this has something to do with our sin regarding our brother Joseph. But why is God doing this to us? Listen, if you guys didn't sell your brother into slavery, none of this would have happened. So you made a choice. Don't blame God. But we often blame God and do not see in it this perceived punishment of ours. We perceive that we're being punished and we know God is punishing us and we're asking why, or why is he doing this, or what's the purpose of this? We don't see that it's actually a blessing. And so the moment you embrace your punishment, your perceived punishment as a blessing, something amazing will come out of it. I want to look at a story of all of us. Okay. If you look at Jacob and Joseph's lives, you realize they are extremely righteous people. And then the next thing we need to ask ourselves is, why is bad things happening to good people? And the reason for that is we are placed on this earth to correct our souls, our neshama. We need to correct it. We need to come to a place of tikkun ulam. Okay, soul correctness in this life. And the only way to bring soul correctness is to go through hardship. There is no growth without pain. There's no bettering of yourself without hardship. And so I want us to look at the story of the cupbearer being released and then Joseph asking him, please don't forget about me. Tell your master Pharaoh about me. Tell him I'm innocent. Get me out of here. You know, it's like, I'm going crazy. Get me out of this place. I'm innocent. I'm in the pit for a second time. And it must be some sort of trauma response also for him. And so why did Joseph stay 2 years after the cupbearer was released? When we place our hope, our emotional security in something or someone, we are not placing it in God, okay? We are not placing it in the creator of the universe. And so we see that what Joseph did wrong is he looked at a person to be his savior. He looked at a person and hoped this person is going to save me. And the moment we do that, we lose our connection with God because he's no longer our provider. The moment we develop dependency, emotional dependency on something, we are no longer living in God as our creator. We become the creator, or we place our hope in something else that we think will be our creator of wealth, happiness, or peace. God is our creator, not a person, not a job. When we expect a human being is going to save us or make us rich, we are in trouble. Because we create expectancy and emotional security in another. That thing or person becomes our creator, it becomes our God. We rely on them for our happiness. We rely on them for our security. We rely on them for us feeling whole. We rely on them feeling joy and happiness in this life. And I just quickly want to say, there is a part of us, there's a balance between these two things. There is a need for us to be in fellowship, and there is a need for us to put food on the table and to network with people. And networking is fine, doing all of these things and connecting to people and helping and doing business and doing things, that is fine. Meeting our basic needs are fine. Okay, I just want to say that. We'll get to what is not okay. God gave us everything. When he said, let there be light, God gave us this world. And when he breathes into us, into our nostrils, the breath of life, he includes himself in what he is giving us. And so networking is normal, but dependency on anything other than God is not normal. If we rely on people to make us feel whole, if we rely on our salary, on our job, if we put ourselves in a situation where we think, oh, if this person does this business deal, he will save me from my circumstances, he will save me from my situations. And the moment you look at a situation like that, the deal will not go through. You need to look on God. You need to look to God for your dependency. And so networking is normal. Putting food on your table is normal. Depending on things is not. So others cannot make you happy. The only way to make yourself happy is to be aware of your needs, but not be selfish. Don't look at people and think, what can you do for me? What can you give me? How can you better me? That's selfish. We're not supposed to do that. Your life will only have meaning to the extent that you lay it down for others. If you look at Joseph, he really did everything in his power to make his masters rich and successful. Okay, he did it for Potiphar. He did it for Pharaoh. He really, really did everything. He laid his life down in servanthood for these two men so that their lives can be better, so that their lives can flourish. Okay, and he never had 1 ounce of bitterness of making someone else rich. I don't think Joseph had a lot when he worked for Potiphar in the beginning. And even when he started making more and more money, do you imagine him going like, yeah, making all this money for Potiphar, I'm still a servant, I'm a slave, I'm stuck here, I can't leave. You know, that wasn't his attitude. He laid his life down for his masters. Joseph has the potential. He knows from his dreams that in some way, shape, or form, he's going to be a king. And he wants these dreams of his to fulfill his potential, to become true. But in front of Pharaoh, the moment he was rushed out of jail, he was placed in front of Pharaoh. He didn't tell Pharaoh, and I'm the guy to do it for you. He said, find someone that's wise, that knows how to do it. This is the plan. Take 20% of tax. You put it away, you'll be fine. He never put up his own hand. Okay. He has learned to not, first of all, not put his own hand up for things. But second of all, he has learned that he cannot take it for himself. He cannot put his own hand up. He cannot make it happen. Okay. God cannot do it for me for free. Okay. Whenever we go through these types of situations, if I'm a righteous person, I can't expect just because I'm a child of God that he should just give everything to me for free. That is called spoiling you. And if you're spoiled, you'll have no hardship. And if you have no hardship, you'll have no growth. Okay, so I need to bring it down from heaven. How do I bring things down from heaven? If you are looking at the physical realm for your happiness is not in your connection with God. So how do I bring my potential, what God has for me, my correctness down from heaven? Okay. The only way we can do that is to have a right state of mind where we know no one, not a person, not a thing on this earth, in this physical realm, can do it for us. Only God and my belief system in him can do it. My mindset I choose to have. I choose to not be a victim. I choose to not look at the negative. Then he, God, becomes my happiness. Okay, so being connected to God means no one can take something away from me. No one can give it to me. It is all about emunah. Emunah means faithfulness, unwavering belief that God does everything that's bad in your life and God does everything that is good in your life for your own correctness. It means faithfulness. And so we see in a moment that Jacob has lost his emunah when he told his sons, what is this that you have done to me? Telling the man about my family, now he wants Benjamin. He blames his sons, not realizing that it's God, right? So he lost his emunah there for a moment. He started living in fear of losing another son, losing his faithfulness, his emunah in God. So it is all about emunah. Between Jacob and Joseph and the brothers, what does it mean when you are connected to God in a place of emunah? It is the connection between the world to come, the connection to the heavens, connection to where God is, to where you will end up, and your soul here on earth, your mind, your will, and your emotions. How do I do that? How do I connect to that place of Emunah and stay there? It's constant study. You pray, you read, you meditate on God's word, you read and eat the word of God. It is all to get your soul to a place of Emunah, connection to the world to come. And if you do that, just like Joseph, you'll be rushed out of your pit of circumstances. Don't blame anyone or anything for your fails, your hardships. You just try to reach that place of Emunah and connection. That's your only job. That's the purpose. If you reach it, you will be rushed out of your pit. Okay, so if you look deeper into the story of Joseph getting out of the pit and the dreams and becoming finally his dreams being fulfilled, you can see God is not punishing people who don't deserve it. God is bringing us to a place of Emunah, healing us through hardship so we could reunite with people, not depend on those people, but depend on him alone. Okay, so let's recap. Is Yeshua testing you the same way Joseph tests his brothers? Is your hardship bringing you closer to a connection of the world to come? Are you staying faithful until God sends messengers to rush you from your pit? Are you showing remorse for your mistakes like the 10 brothers did? Holding on to God like Joseph did? Or do you feel like a victim? I hope you have a blessed week. Shabbat Shalom. Please feel free to leave a comment. If you like this video, click the like button. Remember to subscribe to our channel and don't forget to ring the bell.